Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy. But with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Navigating COVID while protecting yourself can be difficult. Fortunately, there's a hotline you can call with any questions. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on vaccines, booster shots, and testing sites. Right now, booster shots are available to anyone over the age of 18 for those who are eligible. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline can also help with housing, food, medical, and educational support. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19, vaccinations, booster shots, or testing, please call 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies overnight with a low around 22. Tuesday, a mix of rain and snow with a high near 36. And Wednesday, sunny with a high around 4. The Great Wall Restaurant in Edina provides a delicious taste of Szechuan and Mandarin cuisine. They have some delicious meat and seafood options, plus veggies, fried rice, and noodles. The Great Wall Restaurant's located just north of 50th and France on the Edina-Minneapolis border. Order online at greatwalledina.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakunjahade, which means distant thunder. My colonized name is Robert Pilot, and we discuss local and national Native news and events. And as you know, Wendy, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Sage Cancer Program. Native Roots Radio is partnering with Minnesota's Sage Breast and Cervical Cancer Program to talk about cervical cancer. Watch live on Monday, January 24th at 7:30 p.m. on Native Roots Radio Facebook page.
Hey. So happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We were alive long enough to be alive while he was still alive and when he was murdered, and also when there was no Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I think we owe a lot of it to Stevie Wonder. I know he really pushed that on all the politicians.
For a Martin Luther
King Day. Yeah, definitely. So, it's a day of remembrance, and don't forget. And, I think that's what's really important about, true history and things like that. If you don't know your history one day, you're going to repeat it. And that's just happens over and over again in the history of the world.
That's right.
Hey, so hey, that's we talk news, we talk special things. We have Dr. Stately on today. We're talking about probably everything, including his kids' hockey. But it's always good to see him, and he's our Monday guest. And without further ado, Wen, I'm gonna hand it over to Ogimaa with the news. Welcome, Ogimaa.
Hi, Anim Bajou. You guys hear me okay today?
Yeah, sound better than ever.
Awesome. Great. I got my big old awesome microphone back instead of just my little headset after the move. So happy to be back on air. I am Ogimaa Giniw Ikwe, and I am from the Red Lake Reservation in northern Minnesota. I've lived most of my life in central Minnesota, and I have some news for you here from Minnesota. If you did not hear the news last week, AIM founding member Clyde Belcourt did pass away. Hundreds of leaders and supporters attended his wake service on last Thursday evening in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was 85 and had passed away last Tuesday morning after complications with cancer. The wake service was at the East Phillips Park Cultural and Community Center on Minneapolis' south side. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry spoke at his services, and the Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who is also a White Earth Ojibwe tribal member, presented a proclamation from the Minnesota Governor's Office, which declares Saturday, January 15th as Clyde Belcourt Day in Minnesota, and stated that it's with deepest gratitude the state of Minnesota recognizes Clyde Belcourt for his dedication to Indian country. Clyde Belcourt had established the Peacemaker Center for Indian Youth, the American Indian Movement Patrol, a legal rights center, the Native American Community Clinic, Women of Nations Eagles Nest Shelter, the International Treaty Council, the American Indian Opportunities Industrialization, and helped the National Coalition on Racism in Sports and Media. Clyde is survived by his wife Peggy, his sister Judy, his children Susie, Tanya Crow, and Wolf, and many nieces, nephews, grandchildren, friends, and relatives. So update on services from him last week. As we come into the spring here in Minnesota, we want to remember that Line 3 was completed, but there is still an aquifer that is bleeding water in Minnesota near Clearbrook that Enbridge neglected a permit and breached by drilling too deep. The 1-year anniversary of that aquifer breach is going to be on this Friday, January 21st. And as we approach that anniversary, the Enbridge company is preparing to further continue the destruction into Wisconsin and Michigan, where they already have ongoing litigation. But Wisconsin, those who are listening, the Wisconsin DNR is accepting comments on Line 5, which is an Enbridge project that runs through northern Michigan, from Superior, Wisconsin to Sarnia, Ontario, So it goes through northern Wisconsin and both the upper and lower peninsulas of Michigan. So it's a hazardous liquid pipeline that routes light and synthetic crude oil from Superior to Ontario. Under state law, there's a draft environmental impact statement for Line 5 that must contain information about how the project would impact people, natural resources, and the economy. And it also must include an analysis of alternatives to the proposed project. They want to route it off of the Bad River Indian Reservation among ongoing litigation. And Line 5 is currently operating illegally still underneath the Straits of Mackinac in northern Michigan. If you would like to testify on that at the public hearing, check out the Wisconsin DNR website to register online for the Zoom hearing on February 2nd, 2022. And the DNR will also accept written comments through Friday, March 4th, 2022. Public comments can be mailed to Line 5 EIS Comments DNR, in parentheses EA/7, 101 South Webster Street in Madison, Wisconsin, 53707. I believe I shared a link to that on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page, but I will definitely share another link here from the Wisconsin Citizens Media Cooperative. Thank you guys for following up on that. Early this year in January, news is just coming out about an unfortunate triple homicide that happened on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation on January 5th, I believe. 3 people were murdered. Alma Garno, Jamie Graham, and Michael White Plume Sr. were found shot to death inside of a home near Wounded Knee. The FBI and Rapid City Resident Agency are working alongside the Oglala Sioux Department of Public Safety, and they believe they have leads on a person of interest responsible for the killings. And according to a statement by the FBI, formal charges related to the homicides are pending. But because circumstances on the homicides are still under investigation, it's not officially closed yet, but law enforcement has indicated there's no continued danger to the public in that area. So just so we are aware of that. In Canada, Six Nations twin sisters were awarded an award from the Aboriginal Business Council, the Young Aboriginal Entrepreneur Award was for the first time awarded to twin sisters. So they were dual recipients of the award. They received the award for being co-founders of Sapling and Flint, which is a jewelry manufacturer specializing in gold and sterling silver. One of the sisters is a goldsmith, wampum cutter, and a member of the Canadian Jewelers Association. And the other is a regalia maker, visual artist, and has a background in small business management. So their talents combined to make them a really good team for this, and they received that award just as of January 14th. So congratulations to you, Jesse and Dakota Brandt of Sap and Flint Jewelry Manufacturing. Quick update here. Wendy, did you hear about the animals that were killed in the pipeline leak outside of New Orleans?
I did not. Tell me.
Thousands of animals have been killed after a massive diesel leak outside of New Orleans. The documents from the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration show that December 27th, the spill was discovered, and the severely corroded pipeline spilled 300,000 gallons of diesel, according to those documents. And this was after the operator of the pipeline delayed needed repairs. And unfortunately, there's been several thousand marine animals as well as on-land animals like crocodiles and those kinds of things that have been killed due to that leak. So
horrible.
An update for you all there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, thanks, Ogimaa. That was a hard news to hear today. Sometimes it is. You're listening to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and we're going to be back in a minute. And I see Dr. Stately's on deck, so we're excited. We're going to make him work hard today, maybe all 3 sections. Hey, we'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us.
I heard sex trafficking happens a lot in Indian country. What is that?
Here are some of the real reasons why sex trafficking happens in Indian country. Unequal gender roles that were forced on us by colonization. Communities don't have enough resources. Silence around domestic and sexual violence. Lack of attention and justice for missing and murdered Indigenous people. There's a lot of behavior that keeps our communities out of balance. These are just a few true reasons why Native communities are targeted by traffickers. When these acts of violence happen in our communities, it opens us all up for exploitation.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Aho, relatives. My name is George McCauley, Omaha Nation. I'm a citizen of the Omaha Nation in Nebraska. As we head into wintertime, many of us will be back together indoors. It's important to make sure you receive your COVID booster shot. Older Americans are more at risk for complications for COVID-19. All 3 COVID vaccine boosters have been approved. Find a vaccine site by calling 651-304-9986 or go to vaccineconnector.mn.gov.
Navigating COVID while protecting yourself can be difficult. Fortunately, there's a hotline you can call with any questions. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on vaccines, booster shots, and testing sites. Right now, booster shots are available to anyone over the age of 18 for those who are eligible. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline can also help with housing, food, medical, and educational support. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19, vaccinations, booster shots, or testing, please call 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. 9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Alliance Energy, powering beyond.
Hey, we're here with Dr. Stately, and Dr. Stately is CEO at the Native American Community Clinic. Welcome, Dr. Stately. I was talking to, Dr. Stately just ran away. I was talking to a friend of ours, and I didn't know that he was allowed to call you Tony, and I've been calling you Dr. Stately for over a year. What gives? Barry was calling you Tony, and I'm going, who are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, I've known Barry a really long time.
Easy, Dr. Stately. Hey,
You can call me whatever you want. You want to call me.
All right. We're gonna call you late for dinner.
There you go.
Oh.
So, yeah, I answer to both names.
Well, you're looking good. You got the mod kind of turtleneck going on. I like that, the kind of style. So what's going on? You know, Wendy and Ogimaa were talking to you last week, so I'm a week behind. What's happening? First of all, congratulations to your boys. Let's talk about that. Unbelievable hockey players they are, and the pictures and videos you sent me were pretty amazing. And everyone was with hockey hair. I liked it. They all
yeah, that's like my boys have serious hockey hair. Their whole team. I mean, you know, I don't know. I honestly don't remember like having that much like my world centering around my hair at that age. But man, that's a really serious part of hockey. It's a big commitment. It's like on the ice, you got a big old commitment to like the game, and then off the ice, it's your hair. So
yeah, definitely. And it was looking good. I just have to say that another few months, and couldn't tell who was native and who wasn't native.
Yeah. It's a we had a great weekend. We had a great weekend of hockey. It has been a rough week for me. So to end it with like 3 days of or 4 days actually of hockey, and then for my boys and their team to win the tournament was a really nice way to end out the weekend, because man, we had a lot of the deaths last week, and one of them was my cousin. My cousin Roxanne, who I think I've talked to you all here before. She was like resistant to the idea of getting the vaccine, and I talked to her about that. I think I talked with you about it. We did a piece for an interview for a news television station at the time a while ago, and of all times, my dog wants to play with me. Go away. She passed really rapidly. She was diagnosed with metastatic liver cancer, I think, Saturday, I think, and then by Tuesday she had passed. And
oh my God,
I know.
I'm so
I
sorry.
did meet her outside your office. If you remember when I handed you those headphones that you never use, that's when I met her. Isn't that right? It was outside your office.
Yeah, that's when you met her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like, my heart goes out to her son, my nephew.
Yeah.
Like, he's 19 or 18. I can't remember.
Oh.
He's young, and I remember being like, I remember being 25 when my mom died, and man, that turned my world upside down. And so I just can't imagine how difficult it is for him, and sending out prayers for him and lots of love for him and his sister and his brother, Janelle and Jason, and all of she went to like just over the course of that week, my cousin and Clyde died on the same day. Clyde died at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then at 10 o'clock at night, I got the news that my cousin passed away. And, so it was a rough week. And hockey's good medicine for sure. It's the, I guess it's the white man's version of the medicine game, perhaps. I don't know.
On skates, on slippery surface. Yeah,
Yeah, it's essentially lacrosse on skates on ice. So played in a lot of same roles. So. But anyway, it was a good way to close out the week. So
right, and it's hard when you have all the relatives and then you have someone famous pass away around the same time, and it kind of overshadows that. And but I'm happy that your nephews, and I know a lot of your family, and you have a strong family to support them. Your niece and nephew about their mom. That's hard,
yeah.
and I know you reach out.
Yeah. We have a big family. It seems we descend from the Stately clan of Red Lake, so all of us, and we have a big family. So I think we'll be okay. Just painful, I wanted more time to say things to her. I wanted to have more time to say goodbye, and I didn't get the time. And so I think that's always a really good message to tell people. It's like, you never know if you're going to have enough time. So, don't hold on to resentments. Don't hold on to grudges. Tell people you love them every time you see them. Give them kisses, make every moment with them matter and count, and make the memories beautiful and worthwhile. And because we don't ever know when we're going to take that journey back home to Creator. We just don't, right?
Yeah. Whenever I see Clyde, I would tell him after we left that I loved him, just because, in his later years, he became a big teddy bear, and, that isn't the way he was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
No.
The stately uncle, he was knocking doors down and taking no prisoners.
Yeah, he was. He was a formidable, man, and I knew him since I was a little tiny guy, right? I think I did a piece, and I think you were in the same piece. We did a piece together for Minnesota Native News. Or am I allowed to say that on the air? That other news organization that.
Just don't bring NPR up. That's all. No, I'm kidding.
But and they asked me to kind of share some of my thoughts about his passing, and I talked about I was a little kid. I was 6 years old when when my uncle Clyde and my uncle Dennis, both of those men were married into my family. Some of my earliest memories are of us living in the Southeast projects, and my mom hosting gatherings of these men and other men who were and other people from the community who would come to our home, and and I didn't know at the time, of course, I just a little 6-year-old, that was the beginning of the conversations and the planning around American Indian movement, which and one of the things I loved about Clyde was that he acknowledged, especially in his later years, he acknowledged the nexus, the genesis of AIM, and what would become AIM, as being fundamentally organized by the Native women in South Minneapolis, women like my mother and other relatives in our community that had just had enough of it, of seeing the things that were going on in their families, the brutality that was happening to the men, their husbands, the father of their children, and the men in their lives, and I think it was wonderful and important for us to remember that and to have him acknowledge that. I think every time I had a conversation with him, he would talk about he would always talk about the relationship he had with my mom, which wasn't always without its contentions, right? Women in leadership have strong opinions, as do men in leadership, and but they respected and honored each other, and that was really nice stories to share with him. So.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the complaints I do have about the American Indian movement personally is I don't see any young leadership now coming through there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with AIM now. that's the only thing that kind of hurts me right now.
One of the things I think that's interesting is like, I talked to, Lisa Bellinger is one of the co-directors of AIM now with in Minneapolis here, along with Cara. And Lisa's not a spring chicken, but she's also not really, she's not an elder per se. She's not terribly old. But I think both of those people understand the importance of sort of growing new leadership, and I'm hoping that we see that happen. But I think it's also a really important thing for us to acknowledge that in traditional Native cultures, there was a figurehead for sure. There was a figurehead in every single Native community who sort of was like the outward-facing leader of the organization. And I think that in a lot of ways that was what Clyde was, right? But in Native culture, everybody has a responsibility to step into that leadership role and those responsibilities at any given time, right? Because leadership requires us all to pony up some resources and some commitment at any part in our lives. And we all have really unique gifts, right? We never know what the gift is that is going to be needed to answer a specific problem. And so the contributions that every single one of us have an opportunity to make at any point in time is really important. And leadership is a shared responsibility in tribal communities.
Yes, I agree 100%. I'm laughing because your dog's going crazy over there.
Yeah.
But
that I hit him all, but yeah.
We'll interview the dog in the next segment. Hey, you're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we're with Dr. Stately. We'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us.
Give me that.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
Aho, relatives. My name is George McCauley, Ogimaa Giniw. I'm a citizen of the Omaha Nation in Nebraska, but reside in the Twin Cities area. As we head into wintertime, many of us will be back together indoors. It's important to make sure you receive your COVID booster shot. Those 65 and over are recommended to receive their booster dose. Older Americans are more at risk for complications for COVID-19. So get your booster shot to make sure you stay safe and healthy this winter. All 3 COVID vaccine boosters have been approved. Find a vaccine site by calling 651-304-9986 or go to this website, vaccineconnector.mn.gov. 651-304-9986. or go to vaccineconnector.mn.gov.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me, Wen. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and American Indian women in Minnesota are twice as likely to develop cervical cancer. Native Roots Radio is partnering with Minnesota's SAGE Breast and Cervical Cancer Program to talk about cervical cancer. Watch live Monday, January 24th at 7:30 p.m. on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page. Guests will include public health experts within the American Indian community who will share important information about cervical cancer in our Native communities. Tune in Monday at 7:30 p.m. on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page.
This is Angela Warner for Warner Stallion, and while I'm always proud of the work we do in our community, I'm especially proud this month of our partnership with Make-A-Wish. With your help, we are donating $50 for each qualifying appliance purchase to Make-A-Wish. Together, we could donate up to $100,000 to grant wishes for Minnesota kids. So I invite you to do good for your family while helping kids' wishes come true during Warner Stellian's Great Give Back. Now through January 24th, in-store or online at warnerstellian.com.
This is Santita Jackson, Minneapolis, St. Paul. I couldn't be more excited about starting our days together, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. Central on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota.
Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies overnight with a low around 22. Tuesday, a mix of rain and snow with a high near 36. And Wednesday, sunny with a high around 4. The Great Wall Restaurant offers one of the most extensive Chinese menus in the Twin Cities. They specialize in Szechuan and Peking dishes, plus they have hot and sour soup and pan-fried dumplings and much more. Stop by the Great Wall's Edina location or call for takeout as well. You can find more information at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
We are the Lusa Nation.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Sage Cancer Program.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to Madison and Devil Radio listening to us, and then our new WAUK, the Shaw and FM down in Milwaukee, got us in there live. We want to just give you a quick shout out. We have Dr. Stately on, and Dr. Stately's our normal, well, I'm going to put the quotes up for normal Monday guest. He's a regular Monday guest. And I don't even know what his dog's name, but his dog was co-starring in the last segment there. But we were talking pretty heavy about leadership, and I saw a quote that I really believe in. I think a couple of our listeners that are watching us on Facebook and YouTube mentioned the fact that you don't, there it is, everybody can be great. And I think that's a Dr. Martin Luther King quote too. Everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. Only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that you end that last segment on, is that, you know, it's time for us to step up, meaning everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's like, you know, it is what makes our, you know, as Indigenous people, we understood fundamentally the critical importance of interdependence, right? The value of the contribution of everybody, right? You know, that concept of sort of life living within a circle where everybody, there is no hierarchy in a circle. Everybody is equal in a circle. Everybody has the same level of importance. Their contribution is equally vital to the overall well-being of the people, and you know, and those that's a really fundamental principle in the way we think of who we are as Indigenous people. It's part of our original instructions when Creator sent us here. And I think that's a shared principle across all of our tribal communities. I haven't been to one tribal community yet where that wasn't the principle that was sort of, you know, embedded into their everyday lives. And so I think that's an important thing for us to try to remember, is like, you know, and it has specific importance and relevance in the conversation around the pandemic and the response to the pandemic, and you know, what can I as this individual person contribute to the well-being and the survival of our entire community and the nation and the globe. You can really apply that to practically any large thing that we're sort of like struggling with: global warming, you know, human trafficking. You know, we all have a contribution to make in the crises that confront our homes, our communities, and our nation and our world. And understanding how I'm connected to you and how you're connected to me, and how we're all interconnected across the globe is a really important thing to remember, because this is part of who we are as Indigenous people. And at any point in time, I need to step up and step into a space, even when it makes me uncomfortable. I'm still going to need to do that, because everybody's well-being relies upon that.
Right. And I know it's a cliche, it takes a village and all those things, but from Hillary back in the day. But I also really feel like that old saying really it's caught fire with our family, and that's, is waiting for somebody to do something, then I realized I was somebody, that kind of all those
Yeah,
things about stepping up.
for sure. Well, Hillary got that from Indigenous people. That it takes a village.
I'm sure she did. I'm
Yeah.
sure
She didn't grow up in a village, I'm pretty sure, right?
No, south side of Chicago, no.
Well, yeah.
But you're right. But, and it's funny too, you were talking about your mother and AIM, and I can only, well, one of the things about AIM is that it was a spiritual movement. And I think early people like your mother, and the women that really were the backbone. And I know we say that a lot as a almost cliche-ish, but they truly were the backbone of the movement.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the backbone of the movement, I think it's really also like, at least this has been my experience. I speak of like my own lived experience, and I'll speak of the things that sort of I witnessed in my lifetime, as demonstrated through the things I've observed. And, the things I observed as a young man and a boy growing up in South Minneapolis was that women stepped up and held positions of leadership. They have more positions of leadership today than they've ever had, right? And they stepped into some critical spaces, and that's been a really important thing. But all throughout our history as Native people, women have had important contributions to their communities and to their families since the beginning of time. That has been a truism that has always been in place, right? And so, we're different from Western cultures that sort of focus or give more significance and relevance to patriarchal structures of power. Like in traditional tribal communities, we shared power, and power was something we shared it between the genders, and we also shared it across the generations, right? It was that is fundamental to sort of the understanding of who we are as Indigenous people, right? Our Creator sent us here, every single one of us, when we came here as spiritual beings across that star path. When we came here, we had gifts that Creator gave us, and we all had an important contribution. We all had our own personal power to draw on, right? And that is true when we leave as well. When we go back to Creator and we walk that star path, we still have that power, and that power transcends dimensions, and we have actually more ability to wield it than when we are here in the two-dimensional or three-dimensional form, right?
Yeah.
These are all things that I was taught as a young man through like ceremony, through witnessing women taking on really critical roles. My mom was a really powerful woman. There were lots of powerful women in our community. Franny Fairbanks, my aunt, Joanne Dickinson, all these, incredible women who sort of like were shaped me. I always say, I've made Facebook posts about this as well. I am the man who I am today because of the women. I was raised by women. I was raised by Indigenous women. My father wasn't around, but those women shaped my understanding of who I am as a man in the world, and my contributions and the importance of the work that I do, both in my family, in my community, and in the world. And those are incredible lessons. And we all have a responsibility to sort of to pass that knowledge on and to cultivate that in our communities and our families.
We had a show that was just the original OGs from Wounded Knee, and Stephanie Autumn and like 17 years old when she was at Wounded Knee. But all these people that were involved in the movement, per se, the women, have not disappeared. They've formed into another thing similar to AIM, where they're serving their community and their people and not taking the fanfare.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's kind of like going on pulling on that thread about leadership. It's like this idea, like every one of us has a responsibility to step into that role at some point in time. Like, women, some of the things that we have, our communities over the last number of generations, we've gotten a little bit away from it. We've faced some formidable, conditions and opponents. We have the pandemic now, but we've had lots of other things that have been struggling we've been struggling within our communities. But we have forgotten things like, what warriorship is about. Warriorship isn't about fighting. Warriorship is about protecting. Warriorship is about, working hard to protect your family and your community and the things that you have, which sometimes involves having to sort of like, and to fight, especially if there's a immediate threat at your doorstep, right? But warriorship more oftentimes requires us to tend to vulnerable people, feed the elders, make sure that there's space and place for people to be living in safety and those kinds of things. And AIM is certainly, over the last couple of years, like AIM has been out there doing those things more frequently. In the pandemic, in the early part of the pandemic, and especially after George Floyd's murder and all that stuff was happening throughout South Minneapolis, the AIM, folks were out there protecting our buildings, protecting, they patrolled and they protected Franklin Avenue and the Culture Corridor. They protected my clinic for sure. They were out there protecting my clinic from people breaking in and other some of our other entities. And so those are really important things that we need to remember, that warriorship is bigger and broader than just fighting. It's about, being thoughtful and intentional about how do you preserve our culture, preserve our language, preserve who we are as Indigenous people, protect our vulnerables, which are young people and our elders and our women, right? And all of those things are, make up who we are. That's the bigger part of being a warrior, not just fighting.
Exactly. I think a lot of, as you were talking to, and as talking to these people that have been in the business a lot longer than I, is one, a lot of it started in Standing Rock, meaning that there was a rebirth, I think, of nations when we were struggling with the pipeline at Standing Rock, and all the eighth fires flew everywhere. And I really feel like there's people running for office. There's all these things that are happening, including how AIM stepped up during the George Floyd murder and all that was going on, and all the other people that stepped up. So it's good to see and good to look in retrospect, because a lot of times we talk about things that are happening to us, and now we can also talk about things that we've done and are doing.
Yeah. And it can certainly sometimes feel like we haven't gotten very far, especially because we're contending with some things right now. But AIM and Clyde and those people paved the way for a lot of their successes that we have. We have to capitalize on those and continue to push forward for our children.
Perfect. We'll be right back after this short break with Dr. Stately.
Stay with us. Hey, Ogimaa, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
When we heal from our traumas,
when we face our fears,
let go of our addictions,
when we relearn our values,
when we live our teachings,
respecting our elders,
cherishing and honoring our children,
when we honor and take care of our spirit,
there will be no room left for sexual violence.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and American Indian women in Minnesota are twice as likely to develop cervical cancer. Native Roots Radio is partnering with Minnesota's SAGE Breast and Cervical Cancer Program to talk about cervical cancer. Watch live Monday, January 24th at 7:30 p.m. on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page. Guests will include public health experts within the American Indian community who will share important information about cervical cancer in our Native communities. Tune in Monday at 7:30 p.m. on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page.
If you're hurting in your relationship or have been affected by sexual violence, you're not alone. Strong Hearts Native Helpline can help you through these difficult and uncertain times. Strong Hearts Helpline is a free 24/7 confidential domestic dating and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. Help is available by calling 1-844-762-8483 or by clicking on the Chat Now icon on strongheartshelpline.org. This message is sponsored by the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio Presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Wow, we're here with Dr. Stately, who is the CEO at the Native American Community Clinic here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, and we've been talking about a lot of different things here, and I really enjoyed this conversation. Plus, I didn't ask if you could stay on another segment, so I beg your pardon. I'm glad you're still here. But, and we're able to howl again. But, can we switch gears a little bit here in the last few minutes of the show and maybe talk a little bit about what's happening COVID-wise, because I'm confused at times, and I think of myself as average, just around average intelligence, maybe a little below, but I'm still not understanding what's happening here all the time, and we got things happening. So maybe you could give us a quick update of what you know.
Yeah, it's a good thing you're married to a doctor. Yeah, well, one thing I know is Omicron now is the dominant variant in the state of Minnesota, just like across the United States. And I think that there's I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. They're like, well, it's not, Omicron is supposed to not be very serious. It doesn't get you as ill. At least it's not supposed to kill you. I listened to this gentleman talk to me and say these things to me as though he was, offering up to me, which, I'm just, he knows I'm a doctor and stuff like that, but we're just friends. And I was like offering it up as though it was his justification for not needing to get a booster and not wearing a mask in my presence, those kinds of things. And I was like, well, here's the thing. So then I launched into my explanation about why it still is important for us to do things like mask up, get a vaccine when we can, get boosted when we can, those kinds of things. I said, I just told him, I said, NAC is struggling with holding on to staff because they get sick, and then we have to follow the guidelines and the requirements of having people quarantine, and we have to do a number of other things. And when we can't do those things, it means we can't see as many patients, and we can't see as many patients for other things like chronic diseases and all those other kinds of things that are really important for us to help people stay safe and stay healthy and stay with us, right? I really think that my cousin, I was talking earlier about my cousin, getting diagnosed with metastatic liver cancer. She had been diagnosed with stage 1 like 5 years ago, apparently, is what she told me. And And then, I'm pretty sure that she didn't, she got treated and they kind of maybe went in remission for a period of time, but cancer can recur, right? And she also was probably over the last two years, she wasn't pretty consistent with going to see her regular doctor, right? And getting checked out. And that we see that there's just been less availability for healthcare to respond to urgent issues like if you have a heart attack and those kinds of things, or if you have other conditions. So trying to help, and there hasn't been all that much availability for you to sort of kind of just walk in and see your doctor to get your regular screenings. All these things are really important because it's costing us undescribable pain and suffering in for certain folks, and who are much more vulnerable, who can't get a vaccine, who cannot, they have immune suppression and all these other things. And so when you make the decision, to not do your part in this fight against the pandemic, you are inadvertently and unknowingly and unwittingly kind of contributing to the problem. You're contributing to the transmission and the spread. And so just taking an opportunity to encourage people to remember, you're not the only thing that matters in this process, right? There's people who probably rely on you. They're, your family, your coworkers, your extended relatives, all these things. Really important to mask up when you're especially when you're going to be in an indoor space and place longer than 15 minutes. Wear a good mask, not one of those janky ones that somebody gave you that you won at a raffle or something. Get a medical grade mask and wear it when you're especially when you're indoors and you're going to be around a bunch of people, certainly and within 6 feet of them, for any extended period of time, longer than just a few minutes, and that will help contribute greatly to sort of curbing the spread. This last week, my kids pivoted to online school. God, their hearts sank. My heart sank. I was like, oh my God, here we go again. It was this last year when they were doing online school. It was a challenge for our relationship. It's just like so painful and stressful, and I just said, take a big deep breath. It's probably not going to last forever, and let's just do our best, right? And I promise not to yell at you about your algebra.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. Well, it's funny too. We just got our N95, Wendy?
Yeah, the KN95.
KN95 mask, because I'm going to be in Madison on Wednesday, talking to the Senate, Republican Senate in Madison, and they don't want to do it over Zoom. They want it there. And so that's a challenge because, we talk about people that are vaccinated and unvaccinated and how similar they are. I saw a great meme that said, well, I play tennis, but so does
Serena Williams.
Right. And that's the same kind of thing. It's like, that is the same. It is.
Yeah. Saying you could still get COVID if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. And I think it was Leonardo DiCaprio that said, yeah, but Serena Williams plays tennis and so do I. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
Wendy deciphered my conversation there. Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to make a really silly comment, but I'll just hold it to myself. Yeah.
Text it to us later. So we got a couple minutes left, and it's just like, please get vaccinated and keep everyone healthy. I mean,
I get a weekly report from the Minnesota Department of Health on the tribal cases in the state, across the state, and the number of increases in cases, number of COVID cases go up significantly every week. The number of deaths per week go up as well in terms of its impact on our communities. And those are really, I want to remind people, especially Indigenous people, like we are such a small number of, we are a small population, right? We're a young population. We have a lot of young people in our communities and in our families. And there's a lot of young people who haven't gotten vaccinated yet. and
Right.
can't, right? If you're 4 and under, you're not even eligible for a vaccine. Like, I want to kind of go back to our earlier conversation about how we all have a responsibility to like warrior up and take care of ourselves and everybody else, right? And in this context, it's our responsibility to protect the ones that can't protect themselves. They either it's not available or they don't have the resources, right? And it's our responsibility to do that. And it doesn't take a tremendous amount of effort, quite frankly. And so I'm just going to encourage people to do that.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, and I really the cat's taken over here, but I really
see that.
Ready to log us out here, but I really appreciate you being on and the levity of what we talk about, and also the seriousness of what's happening. We'll get through this, and that's just hope everybody that can get through this, because we don't want to miss anyone out there, none of our relatives. Thank you. You've been listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. Free Leonard Peltier.
Stop line 3. Please get vaccinated.
At Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, we got our wood stove to lower our carbon footprint